Welcome to the Real Freedom Podcast, where we inspire you to pursue your passion to gain time and financial freedom through opportunities in real estate. I'm your host, Mike Swenson. Let's get some real freedom together. All right, welcome everybody to another episode of the Real Freedom Podcast, where we talk about people pursuing time and financial freedom through opportunities in real estate. And today we're going to be adding another component on that, which is going to talk about sustainability, creating great opportunities to help the environment in addition to building wealth. And with that being said, we've got our guest here today, Erin Shine. And a little bit about Erin. He's actually been in sustainability for his whole career, was laid off back in 2010 during the recession in his mid-20s, started a 7-figure Inc. 5000 ranked company and had a successful exit in 2017. You've been a real estate investor since 2009. You were in Colorado, and then you moved to Florida. And now your passion is helping people invest in their own homes by using practical sustainability with your company, Attainable Home. And you guys focus on a combination of using energy efficiency, renewable energy with traditional real estate investing principles to create a win-win between monetary and environmental goals. And so you are now in St. Petersburg, Florida, after a brief stop in Cape Coral. So welcome, Erin. We're so excited to have you on the show.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, talk to us a little bit more about your background and how you made that transition to where you're at right now.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for the intro again. As you said, I always was in sustainability. And from early on, I was interested in sort of the combination of business or money savings and investment with the environmental, and kind of like, if we can do the latter, why not do a win-win all the way across? And why I started Attainable Home, kind of jumping around here, was because there's so much noise and terms and things being thrown around with net zero and ESG we hear about, and everyone's talking net zero by 2050 and all this stuff. And what does it even mean? But how I got here was I was interested early on in this space, kind of in college, and all of us real estate investors, my friend handed me, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and sophomore year in college, and the rest is history there. But I always had this idea to combine it with sustainability. So right after college, was in finance and real estate at University of Central Florida. And then I had researched Colorado was kind of the next big up and coming state with solar. And I really wanted to get into solar. So just packed my car, drove out there, and chased the company for 2 months until they hired me, basically. But that's how I got started. My first job was selling solar, and it's much of the same as we see now with the people door knocking, hanging stuff on your front door, the calls, the YouTube ads. And so I did that. Was a little disenchanted back then because the cost was so high. Like even in Colorado, even with a 50% rebate, it was still 22, 25 years on your money in a recession, in 2008. And it just wasn't making sense. So through that, I found energy efficient lighting. And I worked for a company in Boulder for a year and a half, and that went under. And then 2 weeks after that, basically, I was on unemployment. I started an energy efficient lighting distribution company, took it online, was one of the first in the country going e-commerce with it. And then had a good exit in 2017 with that. And so since then, I was kind of, I got more or less full-time into real estate investing. I had some residential properties, but got into commercial syndications, investing in a number of those, and kind of looking at the whole space. And I was like, how can we distill down and simplify real estate investing to combine all these things we talk about: personal finance, financial freedom, wealth building, inflation hedges, understanding the macro picture, the monetary system, with sustainability in a real way. So it's kind of like whatever anyone's individual goals are, well, we're covering that too. And so with Attainable Home, it was like, okay, I've never done a fix and flip before. I've never done a net zero home before. And I wanted to do something affordable to prove that it was possible, because most of the net zero homes I could find were like $1 million. And in Denver at the time, the average home was $700,000 or so. And so I went back to my hometown, which was Fort Myers, Cape Coral, as you mentioned, and just didn't know the pandemic was starting, but had bought it right before, used the BRRRR strategy. It was a $200,000 house, a 1,800 square foot thing. And I, just over 8 months, lived in it and carried out this experiment to try to make a net zero, with two important goals. One being keeping it within the median average home price of the area, so that regular homeowners or average homeowners could afford it and still be net zero. And I wanted to also power the electric car. In my case, it's the Tesla Model 3, which is not normally the definition of net zero, producing as much as you use. And I also wanted to stick to the real estate investing principles that we all do, such as make sure it's actually profitable, whether it's rented or whether it's a primary residence or whatever. It can make sense as an investment, so that even if the market tanks or whatever, you still can cash flow. And so a number of things there, but that's how I kind of got to it. So I've done two of them, and now I'm in St. Pete, Florida, sitting in my second net zero home that I finished a few months back.
That's awesome, because a lot of times, people think like, okay, if I'm going to pursue wealth, now there's a lot of great opportunities out there to pursue wealth, but sometimes people might think it has to be, I have to forego something else. And you're looking at, how can I have my cake and eat it too, do something sustainable, do something great for the environment, and still keep those real estate investing principles. Before we get to the attainable home piece, which is what we'll talk about most of the episode here, go back and just quick cover your real estate journey. I know you had mentioned about doing syndications, doing some residential. Can you just kind of share how you got started? Because I know a lot of folks want to figure out, how do you get started in real estate? So I'd love to hear maybe just how you got that beginning, and then we'll fast forward and dig deeper on what you're working on today.
Sure. Yeah. So it started with a few just primary residential homes that I bought to live in, and I rented out different rooms and things like that. Call it house hacking at today, right?
House hacking before house hacking was a popular thing.
Exactly, which is just renting a room. So yeah, so did that, sold it. A lot of it's timing and luck, especially in business, in real estate. I mean, coming out of the recession is a great time to start buying things, right? So 2009 in Colorado, everything's depressed. So got a little bit equity there, rolled it into a condo in downtown Denver. That just shot up, because also by luck, everyone's moving to Denver. The city just blew up at time. So that's why it's always important to mention time and luck with business or investing. And so I had a few residential properties. When I got the energy efficient lighting company up and running, and that was growing well, I bought another good rental in Denver that I've kept, and then I sold the company. So I had a few residential properties, but then really got into commercial syndications and investing in a lot of different ones, mainly for diversification. If we go back to 2017 to 2019, that was before the pandemic or the macro picture changed quite a lot. And if we rewind then, I mean, you would get nearly nothing for your money on bonds, for yields. Cap rates were so compressed, and they still are in many ways. But, you're just looking for yield. How can I beat general inflation and things and make any kind of cash flow here is really tough. So, a lot of multifamily, self-storage syndications. So I'm still in a bunch of those.
Okay.
And now you can add the 2 net zero homes here in Florida to that. So, not a giant portfolio. It's a big mix of stuff, but diversified, at least in my case.
Yeah. And how did you find out about those syndications? Because I know there's a lot of folks out there that are like, I've heard about those things. I don't really know. Was it, friends or family that you knew, or other investors that you knew that you were introduced to it? Or how did you find out about them?
Kind of. I'm in one specific group called the 506 Investor Group, and that's I think there are 1,000 or 2,000 members in that, where I just kind of stumbled across. It all started with the question of whether you sell any of your real estate investments or a company or something. It's like, one, how can I not lose my capital, which would be a nightmare situation, and then two, like, what do you do with it to stay ahead of inflation and just reinvest it. So I think through a number of things, of course, listen to all the podcasts, Bigger Pockets, was in sort of the real estate world anyway. So you just become familiar. And that's, if I think back then, that's when these syndication models were really just becoming popular. And I think it started with crowdfunding, like online crowdfunding, which was, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the Jobs Act of 2012, and then it sort of snowballed from there where you could start investing online with these. So
I think that's just important for people to know, just to share, because a lot of new investors or people that haven't yet started investing, it's always the question of, how did you get started? How did you find out about those first couple? So let's dig into your projects now in Florida. So as you mentioned, you had goals, you wanted to have the home be affordable. And so you were looking to go back to your roots, Cape Coral, Fort Myers area. How did you go about selecting that particular property?
Yeah, it's interesting. So one, we all have our different calculators that we use to run numbers on. But at the top of the list, when you want to do a project like this, you need a roof that's going to be good for solar. Because my thought was that, okay, if any of this, if none of the efficiency stuff really works out or pencils, then I've got to make up for it in more solar. And it takes up a lot of roof space. I mean, you're talking hundreds of square feet up there on the roof. And you need a lot of things like unencumbered, no trees, no shading, south facing. In our case, in the US, it's just a matter of like ideal tilt angle. And so went in 50 houses or so, literally looking at Google Earth and the roof and like what shading there was. So it was a combo between.
They didn't have, what you're saying is they didn't have a search in the MLS for south facing roof with no trees blocking it. That wasn't a search that you could put yourself on.
Which is a good idea, by the way. And because the solar companies have really cool tools now that measure the sun's radiation through the year and the shading, and computer modeling does this for you anyway. And a good resource there, you could just type in your address to Project Sunroof, and that's Google's solar kind of radiation tool. I don't know if the numbers are accurate anymore in terms of like payback and system costs and stuff like that, because it's all based on your energy bill and other factors. But at least you can see the radiation that hits your home. So that's a tool that people can use. But yeah, so looked at all the metrics, and just went for it. Used the BRRRR strategy more or less, and so I paid $200 cash for it, and I put $100 into it, and about a quarter of that was the efficiency and solar. So call it 75 to make it, redo pretty much everything into a furnished rental, which that's what it is now, a net zero furnished rental.
25 for the solar panels. So you put that in, and then what type of work needed to be done to the home? Pretty
much everything. And again, it was my first one, so a lot of lessons learned, a lot of money burned on redoing projects or just misallocated funds, but and it was during the pandemic also. Supply issues were starting, labor issues. I mean, it was tough. And even the one I did here in St. Pete in a similar fashion was twice as hard for other reasons. But yeah, what did I do? I did, full kitchen remodel, typical fix and flip type of thing. A new roof had just been put on it, which is a good point when looking for going net zero or solar, because you want a newer roof. So the previous owner had done the roof already. But yeah, pretty much everything, new flooring, new paint, kitchen down to the studs, new hot water heater, which we'll talk about in terms of a really good energy efficiency thing to do. New drywall, plumbing, anything that needed to be. It was pretty much kind of a late 80s, early 90s home that we
just dated.
We made fully new. Yeah, incorporating some of this efficiency stuff at the same time.
You were living in the house at the time. Were you doing any of the work yourself, or did you hire all that out?
Yes, to learn, I worked alongside them and did half the work myself, and just to kind of learn the trades and everything. And yeah, just to become a little bit dangerous. And we all know how challenging it can be navigating contractors and managing all that stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and it still is for me. And in fact, like fully admit, I'm not cut out for that. Which is why I went back to blogging, sort of helping other people do this now, right?
Yep.
But yeah, I just needed to learn, so I
Yeah.
dove in.
Okay.
I would not recommend living in a renovation, though.
Yes, it totally impacts your life because you go to the bathroom, take a shower, need to eat in the kitchen, want to just get away and relax in the bedroom. It impacts your
And you
entire
can't do
life.
that. And
Yeah.
sometimes you don't have a bathroom or a kitchen. Yeah. And so, mhm.
Yeah, I remember working on somebody else's house for a little bit, and they were renovating the bathroom. It's like you had to remember to go to the bathroom, stop at a gas station before you went out over to their house because you're helping to work on the bathroom because you can't use the bathroom when you're there. So little things like
Yeah.
that, but you're living in it all the time. So how long did it take then from kind of beginning to end to do the renovations?
I did planning for 2 months, and just because I didn't know what I was going to do yet, and I kind of rallied some of my friends in the industry, building scientists who have been doing this for decades, and
Mm-hmm.
people that have built houses and renovated themselves to kind of combine the plan. And then the actual thing, start to finish, was 6 months.
Okay.
And building businesses in the past myself, I fully admit it wasn't as efficient as it could be, because you'd love to get a team in there, multiple teams in there at once, and hammer it out in as short amount of time as possible. And in all seriousness, speaking to anyone looking to get started, sometimes I did it to save money. I mean, you get the lower, and when you go for mortgages, you get lower interest rates as a
Mm-hmm.
primary, so you can live in there, and house hacking, and you kind of have to work it up, but be conscious of the speed that these take, because the mental toll of living in a project really gets to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't even I don't have family or kids or anything. And that's, I'm sure, exponential layers on top of that in terms of mental stress. So I
Mm-hmm.
just, and I write about this stuff on the website too, but just to caution people, like, have it as fast as possible, so it's get in, get out, so you can breathe a little bit.
You get in, you spend the money, you take the time, you furnished it, and then did you live in it for a little bit afterwards, or did you move out then and then rent it out as a furnished rental, or kind of what happened at the end?
Yeah, so using the BRRR strategy, that was all cash, so it was time to go for the refi. And
Mm-hmm.
so technically, you want to still live in it to go for the refi too,
Mm-hmm.
to get that lower primary mortgage rate. And at the time, we were all lucky. I got 2.99% because of
Nice.
that.
Yeah.
Put 20% in, and therefore the holding costs are very low per month.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and in Florida, everyone's moving here through the pandemic. Who knew that real estate was going to take off like it did? The parties, I mean, it's less of a party now. Things are slowing down, but things are still, going up a little bit around here anyway. But back then it was just like, get in and hold on, because there was just the appreciation. So a lot of my mistakes and things through the project were covered up because of the general inflation and
Mm-hmm.
appreciation of these homes. And that's, again, going back to the luck, but
Yeah.
luck and timing. But yeah, to answer your question, so live in it, refied it, and then I wanted to move up to the St. Pete, Tampa Bay area, just for kind of personal reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And another growing city, a lot of solar, a lot of sort of sustainable stuff going on around here,
Mm-hmm.
among other things. So yeah, put it on Zillow. In a week, I had it rented, and I found out instantly that, because net zero, not I think I was the only one in town. The appraiser had been
Mm-hmm.
doing this 17 years in Fort Myers, Cape Coral, and said, yeah, some houses have solar and everything, but this one, it kind of encompasses everything, including
Mm-hmm.
hurricane impact windows, a really low electric bill to start with, and then solar to also power the EV. And it's done cohesively with, like, not more maintenance. So it's just kind of like a well put together thing,
Mm-hmm.
which is valuable. And we can get into solar maybe in a bit, but if you lease panels, for instance, there's a good chance you're lowering value on your home and
Mm-hmm.
not increasing, because somebody else
Yep.
does stuff on your roof, penetrations and effective lien on your property, and you can't sell it until until you pay it off, until somebody pays it off, the new buyer or you.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I got a renter right away, and it was a couple moving down from the Midwest, and they had a solar home up there that they were selling, and they saw the solar home down here with the EV charger plug-in, and it was a done deal. It was a 5-minute conversation, credit check done,
Mm-hmm.
everything's great, and they were fantastic. And so in terms of marketing and short-term rentals, you're differentiating your tenants, and I found this out with others since then. They're kind of on your team because they love the concept and what you did, and they're more taking care of your house, and sort of like a contentious relationship. Like you're helping each other out, and it's just a great situation. And so that was kind of a nice bonus finding
Mm-hmm.
out, because if somebody has an electric car, it's like, wow, okay, this is net zero, no energy bill, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
And I can plug in my car, so you have double the savings there.
Right. So then when you moved up to St. Pete, similar philosophy, finding that new roof, finding the south facing home, anything that you changed in terms of your search parameters when you were looking up there?
Yeah, a lot changed, and and I put this in the latest case study I just wrote on the website too about this whole project. But my criteria was, can we get a house under contract? Because at the time, I mean, early 2021 or May 2021, it was just nuts.
Yeah.
No inventory. It was even worse than 2020. So it was like, will this house work at all for solar? Which in this house, it's a 50s block home, plaster walls, cloth wiring. I mean, all this. That's why I mentioned twice the headache on the reno, because I never dealt with that before, and it's just harder stuff to work with and a lot more cost.
Mm-hmm.
And I have shading in the backyard, and I was like, can I just make this work with solar?
Mm-hmm.
And so literally that was the only criteria.
So you're still living in it now, right? So did you do full renovations on it just like the last one? Like extensive 9 months,
I
6
did,
months?
yeah, inside and out. Inside and out, a lot of the same stuff. And at least the way I do it, which is kind of a blasphemous in the building science world, or Energy Star or energy auditors, I'm coming at it from a real estate investor's perspective because I want the numbers to work.
Right.
I found when I used to do commercial projects in lighting or solar or whatever the case, it just doesn't happen unless it pencils. So let's just make it pencil. And so with that, it's interesting, at least down here in this area, solar is a lot less payback and it's higher ROI than, say, swapping out your insulation in some cases, or your HVAC. Let's say your HVAC's new. It's like, well, if you have a 15-year payback, you're going to take out a 2019 HVAC unit and put in new mini splits or whatever. It's like, cool, you'll save 300 or 400 a year, but you just spent 9,000. So especially if it's going to be a rental, that's why I kind of take it back to ROI and IRR and all that stuff. And solar is a better way to go, put more panels up versus do these projects and call it a day.
What advice do you have for people if somebody wants to take down a project like this, or if they just want to start chipping away at their own home that they have? What are some advice and recommendations that you have for people?
Sure. There's kind of a decision tree that most people can start with. One, typically the lowest cost and highest impact is air sealing the home, just making it less leaky. And in a lot of counties and cities now, there are blower door test requirements to get your CO, certificate of occupancy. And down here, you have to get between 3 and 6 ACH 50. So it's got to be, not so tight that the house can't breathe, because then you need mechanical ventilation, but then not so leaky that it doesn't pass or it's just inefficient. So air sealing is number one. And that's in a renovation, it's a lot of caulk and spray can foam.
Yep.
Like between the baseboards and the hardwood, you can get the outlet insulator covers behind your wall sockets, because those are all holes into your attic and walls. That's all, those are all leaks. So it's a big leaky boat type of thing. And you just try to seal it up as much as possible. So air sealing's one. Insulation, at least I've found, it just depends on the house, because houses, they're built differently, different year, different construction materials, different builder. It's oriented differently to the sun. What kind of windows does it have? Which way does the sun pour in? So we actually, on the website, there's an ebook on the homepage where you can download it, and it's like 50 of these cheaper DIY things that you can kind of go through. So air sealing is the big one. Insulation's a big one, especially if you have areas of the home that are not insulated at all. That's going to be low hanging fruit. And HVAC, it just depends. I had a 2006 unit, SEER 13, in the first house, and I have a 2019 here, and I didn't touch either of them because, again, just you add more solar at the end, which solar is the very last thing you do. So you do all the efficiency first and then solar last. One big efficiency thing is heat pump hot water heaters. And if you can not have water heating in your kitchen or living area because these new hot water heaters make noise, they install just like a traditional hot water heater, and they are more expensive. Like say a 40 or 50 gallon to install, all in is $2,000. But in my case, I put them in here and it saves $400 a year on your bill. And so that's enough to power the Tesla for an entire year also. It's the same amount of kilowatt hours, which I thought was pretty cool. But doing things like that, you spend $2,000 instead of like $8,000 in solar to produce that power. So that down here, that was like a 3-year payback on my money. And this all kind of depends too if you're the one paying the bill, like with an Airbnb, right, or short term or whatever your deal is with the tenants, or if they're paying it. So things to consider as well. But there's this whole decision tree that we kind of go through, and it's individual for each house.
Great. So anything else that you want to share with people? Any other advice? And then obviously just, you have a lot of great information on your website. So would love to go ahead and share, where folks can find out about you too.
Sure. Yeah. Parting advice. It is really tough to kind of work through this. There's a lot of noise in the industry, and that's what we try to do on the website as best we can. I will say though, it's possible. I mean, even if you do a few of the lower hanging fruit efficiency things, it's worth looking into, even if tenants start complaining about draftiness or one room's freezing, or it's kind of like customer happiness. You wade into that part of happy tenants, and they stay longer, lower turnover, vacancy. So it kind of spills into a lot of different areas. And so with that parting, of course, this is what I do, and I love doing it. But after I did 2 of them here, and I'm connecting with others in the industry, and I've helped friends doing it, it's like the tech and the cost on this stuff is now good enough where this actually pencils, and your ROI usually on the efficiency, especially combined with solar, is higher, in some cases much higher than your typical rental investment. So you're effectively increasing your IRR and ROI on the whole project by tacking this on. And so again, we get to the win-win with that. So that's my parting thought.
Well, and what I was going to say too, like you had mentioned with the tenants, they love working with you because of what you're doing. And so you're a unique space in the market. And so things like you said, people are going to be more likely to care for the properties because they buy in to what you're doing. And so you think about, tenants breaking stuff, damaging stuff, not caring about your property. If they care about the environment enough to where they want to, live in your property, they're going to take better care of the property as well. And so there's some of those hidden wins as well that you're going to experience. And from a comps perspective, it's so unique. And so, yeah, there's a lot of big opportunities there. You're differentiating yourself from the market.
Yeah. And to finish off real numbers, when I combine the efficiency and solar savings, I mean, the ROI, because you get a home value increase too on the solar. And so I got 2/3 equity back on the solar, what I put in. It was $15,000 after the 26% tax credit. And, about 10,000 of equity was added to the appraised value. So net 5,000, and real numbers here on that house, 1,800 square foot, 3.2, saving 1,700 a year in electricity just for the house. And then if you have an EV driving 10,000 miles a year with, say, a Model 3, you're saving $3,000 a year because it's no gas. And we all know what happened to gas this year, prices. And that's a 19% ROI year one, and you're hedging against all future price increases. And then when I add back the equity of the solar, I mean, you can slice and dice this as you want, but it's near 50% ROI just for the efficiency and solar piece of it. So that's what I really love about how this kind of turned out.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. And yeah, how can folks find out more about you, Erin?
Yeah, thank you. So the website's attainablehome.com, and you can contact me on there for, I love working with people on their own projects on these things. And then also that ebook or guide I mentioned on just regular energy efficiency stuff, then anyone can kind of tackle easily, or a handyman or anyone. It's right on the homepage. And also the two projects I did here, the case studies, I did full kind of long write-ups, which are also on the homepage of Attainable Home. So that's how you can find us.
Yeah, you do have a lot of great information on your website. I went through and I read through the blogs on the projects and stuff. So love the information, love what you're doing, and being able to combine providing sustainable homes for the environment along with real estate rental profitability is going to be something that's going to be more common in the future. And you're breaking the headwaters here in tackling these projects. So thank you so much for what you're doing. I love what you're doing and excited to be able to pair people who care about the environment with people who care about rental properties, and being able to marry that together and build wealth and do it in a profitable way. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing.
Yeah, thank you as well.